In 2017, Equifax exposed 147 million Americans' data. Executives sold stock before announcing it. Nobody went to jail, and you still have to use them. Here are the 7 ways credit bureaus control your life with zero accountability. Reason number 1, 3 unelected companies got monopoly power. Alright, reason number 1, your entire financial life is controlled by 3 private companies you didn't vote for, can't fire, and who face zero consequences when they screw up. Meet the credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. For-profit corporations that answer to shareholders, not you. You didn't choose them. You can't opt out. They just exist, and you have to submit. And when they fail, you suffer. That Equifax breach in 2017, they exposed social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and credit card info for nearly half the country. Executives sold their stock before announcing it, then offered free credit monitoring as an apology, which is like an arsonist selling you a fire extinguisher after burning down your house. Did anyone go to jail? Of course not. Equifax paid a fine that was a rounding error in their revenue, and everyone moved on. Except you. Your data is still out there. Forever. And here's the insane part. You still have to use Equifax. There's no alternative. 3 unelected for-profit companies have monopoly control over your ability to get housing, employment, and credit. If they lose your data or make a mistake, too bad, you're stuck with them. It's like being forced to use a bank that keeps getting robbed and then blaming you for the missing money. Reason number 2, the system rewards debt, punishes responsibility. Reason number 2, the credit score system doesn't reward financial responsibility, it punishes it. Here's the paradox: paying off all your debt can lower your credit score. You'd think being debt-free would be the ultimate sign of responsibility, right? Nope. The system sees no active debt as risky. Close a credit card you never use, your score drops. Only use debit cards and avoid borrowing. You have a thin credit file. You're high risk. Let me say that again. Being financially responsible enough to avoid debt makes you high risk. Here's what the system actually rewards: carrying balances, making minimum payments, staying in perpetual debt, because that generates interest for banks. Someone who pays their credit card in full every month. Banks call them deadbeats. That's the actual industry term. You're a deadbeat if you don't generate interest revenue. But someone who carries a balance and pays 18% APR on $5,000 in credit card debt. Profitable customer. Better score. The system isn't measuring responsibility, it's measuring profitability to lenders. You're being judged by how much money banks can extract from you over time. Credit scores were invented to identify which customers will generate the most revenue. That's it. That's the whole system. And America was convinced this is normal. Reason number 3, the rules are secret and you pay to see your real score. Reason number 3, the credit score system runs on secret algorithms and intentional confusion, then charges you to see the number they're actually using. The formulas for calculating credit scores are proprietary trade secrets. You're being judged by a secret formula you're not allowed to see. Very normal, very fair. Because the rules are secret, nobody can give consistent advice. Ask 5 experts what the ideal credit utilization ratio is, and you'll get 5 different answers. 30%, 10%, 1%. Nobody knows. The rules change constantly. For years, checking your own score would hurt it. Then they changed that rule. Why? They don't have to explain. And here's the best part. The free credit scores you can access, they're not what lenders actually use. Credit Karma shows you a Vantage score. Almost no lenders use that. Lenders use FICO scores, and FICO has 28 different scoring models. Your mortgage FICO is different from your auto loan FICO, which is different from your credit card FICO. So the free score you're checking isn't the score judging you. Want to see your actual FICO score? That'll be $40 per bureau. They invented a system to judge you, made the rules secret, then charge you to see how you're being judged. It's like being graded on a test where the teacher won't tell you the answers. The rubric changes randomly, and you pay $40 to see your grade. The confusion isn't a bug, it's a feature. Confusion leads to mistakes. Mistakes lead to late payments and high balances, all of which generate revenue. The system is designed to keep you guessing, so you keep paying. Reason number 4, it didn't exist until 1989. America survived fine. Reason number 4, credit scores didn't exist until 1989, and somehow civilization didn't collapse. FICO score was invented in 1989. Anyone over 35 was born into a world where credit scores didn't exist, and people still got mortgages, rented apartments, and bought cars. How? Banks looked at your income, employment history, and references. They talked to you like a human being and assessed whether you could repay a loan. Credit scores didn't solve a problem. They created a control system. Before 1989, lending required human judgment. Credit scores automated it. Now, a 3-digit number determines your fate in seconds. No judgment, no context, just an algorithm. Banks love this because it's faster and cheaper. But here's what nobody talks about. Credit scores turned lending into gatekeeping. Instead of, can this person afford this loan? It became, does this number meet our threshold? No appealing to a human, no explaining circumstances. The algorithm said no, so the answer is no. Credit scores didn't make lending fairer. They made it faster and less accountable. And 35 years later, Americans can't imagine a world without them. It's not the only way to measure trustworthiness. It's just the most profitable way for banks. Reason number 5, they made it inescapable. Reason number 5, credit scores started as a tool for banks, but now they control every aspect of American life. You can't get a mortgage. A 50-point difference can cost you tens of thousands over 30 years. You can't rent an apartment. Landlords require $650 minimum. Bad score? You're homeless. Or you pay a bigger deposit. Or you need a cosigner. You can't get a job. Employers check credit scores even for positions with zero financial responsibility. Teacher? Credit check. Warehouse worker? Credit check. The logic of financial stress makes you unreliable. So if you're struggling financially and need a job to fix it, the system blocks you from getting hired because you're struggling financially. Very helpful. You can't get reasonable insurance rates. Car insurance, homeowners insurance, even health insurance in some states use credit scores for premiums. Bad credit, higher rates. Because obviously your credit score predicts how likely you are to crash your car. Totally logical. You can't get utilities without a deposit. Electricity, water, internet, all check your credit. Low score? Pay up front. Nothing says responsible society like making poor people pay extra for basic services. Housing, employment, insurance, utilities, all gatekept by 3 private companies using a secret algorithm. You literally cannot function in American life without submitting. It's like needing permission from a corporation to exist. And if they say no, good luck. Reason number 6, errors are rampant and impossible to fix. Reason number 6, credit bureaus constantly make mistakes, and fixing them is a nightmare designed to make you give up. According to the FTC, 40% of Americans have at least one error on their credit report. Almost half the country. We're talking about accounts that don't belong to you, late payments you never made, debts already paid off, or entirely wrong identities mixed into your file. So you file a dispute. You submit it through a form that looks like it was designed in 1997. The bureau forwards your dispute to the creditor, the same creditor who made the error. The creditor investigates themselves and sides with themselves. The bureau tells you, dispute denied. Even with documentation, bank statements, receipts, legal documents, they side with the creditor 80% of the time. Because creditors are their customers. You're just the product. And here's the evil part. Even if you win and get the error removed, it can reappear months later. The creditor reports it again, and the bureau accepts it without question. You fight the same battle over and over. Some people spend years trying to fix errors. Meanwhile, they can't buy a house, rent an apartment, or get a job because their score is wrong. The bureaus face zero consequences. No fines, no accountability. Just, sorry, try again, while you're stuck in an endless loop. The system makes fixing errors so difficult that most people give up and accept the damaged score. Reason number 7, banks convinced America it measures character. Reason number 7, the credit industry pulled off one of the greatest rebranding campaigns in history by convincing Americans that credit scores measure character when they measure profitability. Here's what credit scores actually are: a ranking system designed by banks to identify which customers will generate the most revenue through interest and fees. That's it. Someone with a perfect 850 isn't more trustworthy than someone with a 720. They're just more profitable to lenders. They have a long history of borrowing money, carrying balances, and paying interest without defaulting. But banks didn't market it that way. They marketed credit scores as financial responsibility and trustworthiness. They turned a profitability metric into a moral judgment. And it worked. Americans now tie their self-worth to a 3-digit number. People brag about their scores. They feel shame when it drops. They obsess over optimizing it like it's a video game achievement. You're not a person, you're a score. And that score determines your value in society. But here's the truth. Banks don't care if you're responsible. They care if you're profitable. A person who never borrows money, pays cash for everything, and lives within their means, financially responsible, but low credit score because they don't generate revenue. Someone who carries $20,000 in credit card debt and pays $300 a month in interest? Great credit score, because they're profitable. The system rewards behavior that makes banks the most money, and they convinced America that's the same thing as being responsible. It's brilliant, it's manipulative, and it worked. Americans now volunteer to participate in a system designed to extract as much money from them as possible and think it's for their own good. Credit scores aren't a measure of character. They're a measure of how much profit you generate for banks. And the fact that we've accepted this as normal, that's the real scam. So there you have it. 3 unelected companies with monopoly power, a system that rewards debt and punishes responsibility, secret rules you pay to see. It didn't exist until 1989. They made it inescapable. Errors are impossible to fix, and banks rebranded profitability as character. 7 reasons Americans obsess over a number designed to keep them in debt. It's not about trustworthiness, it's about profit. If you love exposés on how American industries exploit you for profit, hit subscribe. We've got plenty more financial scams to unpack because capitalism never met a life necessity it couldn't monetize.